Dream Team, it's your boy Neal back with another reaction video, guys. Here we are with the top 10, or with the 10 biggest controversies in F1 history. Before we dive in, make sure you subscribe to the channel, ring the notification bell, give the video a thumbs up so it gets suggested. Oh my God!
Formula One has always been a hotbed of controversy. Rarely does a season go by without some allegation of cheating, a dramatic on-track incident or political argument becoming a huge talking point.
Yeah, I'm just a recent fan and I've seen this already.
It happens so regularly that sifting it down to a choice of the 10 biggest proved to be a big challenge. Our choices include some that resulted in sporting or financial penalties, but others went unpunished. What matters here is that these are the most talked about controversies that have hit F1 and that they remain a subject of debate to this day, in some cases decades after they happened. Ferrari's Austria 2002 team orders. Team orders have caused problems for as long as motorsport has existed.
I see team orders and drivers don't always go hand in hand. It doesn't always do the same. Sometimes drivers, they like, nah, they get the team order. Nah, I'm not doing that. They tripping. This is my time.
But the most explosive reaction of all came when Rubens Barrichello lifted off just before the finish line to let Ferrari teammate Michael Schumacher past to win the 2002 Austrian Grand Prix.
Crazy.
The timing was a result of the lengthy dispute between Barrichello and the Ferrari pit wall, meaning he didn't cede until the last moment, and only after team boss Jean Todt directly ordered him to do so several times. Inevitably, this led to an outcry. The reason it was so unpopular was just how unnecessary it was, given it was only the 6th race of the season. This meant Schumacher's championship lead over Juan Pablo Montoya was 27 points rather than 23. And this, remember, was in the days of 10 points for a win. Schumacher didn't fully grasp just how unpopular this was until he was on the podium. Greeted by jeers and boos, he made Barrichello take to the top step for the German national anthem and gave him the winner's trophy. This proved to be the only thing Ferrari was actually punished for, with a $1 million fine, half of it suspended for a year, for failing to respect the podium procedure. As a result, team orders were banned from F1 until 2011. Ferrari also led to that reversal of the rules.
Wow! What? What you mean team orders were banned? So, could they not talk on the radio for a while? To the team, wow! Just being a recent fan and seeing how much they talk to the, it's not team principals, but captains, I guess captains, seeing how much they talk to them, it's crazy to think that there was a time where you couldn't, talk to your team, or you just had to be out there and figure it out. But at the same time, as a driver, it's like, sometimes it's better if your team keep telling you to let somebody else pass. But nah, I can't imagine them not being able to talk to their team.
Change, thanks to another team orders controversy involving Fernando Alonso and Felipe Massa in the 2010 German Grand Prix. The F1dri Strike. Disputes between drivers and F1's governing body aren't unusual, but at the 1982 season-opening South African Grand Prix, things boiled over. Ahead of Thursday practice, most of the drivers boarded a bus and headed from the Kyalami circuit to the Sunnyside Park Hotel in Johannesburg. The dispute was over new terms added to their super licenses, the first of which would bind their licence to the team for the full term of their contract and prevent drivers changing teams. The second was a clause preventing drivers doing anything that might harm the moral or material interests of motorsport and F1. Effectively, this silenced any criticism. Spearheaded by the returning Niki Lauda and GPDA chairman Didier Peroni, with the latter acting as the key go-between with FISA president Jean-Marie Belestre, there were genuine fears that the impasse might not be broken. The drivers spent Thursday night in a makeshift dormitory in the hotel as they showed real solidarity, with a few exceptions, but they did return to the circuit on Friday before racing on Saturday. Balestre initially attempted to backtrack on assurances the drivers would not be censured, although they did ultimately escape punishment. But for one day and a night, the strike was a global news story, and it was the high point of the long-running FISA-FOCA war that shaped modern F1.
What is FISA? What was that about? What was FISA versus FOCA?
The pink Mercedes. When the Racing Point RP20 broke cover at Barcelona pre-season testing in 2020, it bore a striking resemblance to the 2019 title-winning Mercedes W10.
I remember seeing this on the Netflix, Drive to Survive. I remember seeing this on the show. Everybody was like, oh, it looks like just like the Mercedes.
It was soon dubbed the Pink Mercedes. The name stuck, and thanks to the delayed start to the season, it wasn't until the second race of 2020, the Styrian Grand Prix, that Renault protested the very rapid Racing Point, focusing specifically on the brake ducts. Racing Point was cleared of everything except for illegally designed rear brake ducts. This is because it had received the designs from Mercedes when it was legal, before brake ducts were added to the listed parts teams must design themselves for 2020. But crucially, it had not run that design of rear brake duct in 2019 because it did not work with the higher rate concept Racing Point used then, so it did not qualify to be carried over into 2020 as Racing Point's own design, unlike the front brake ducts. Racing Point was docked 15 points and fined €400,000, but that didn't end the controversy. The threat of protests wasn't dropped until the FIA finalised new regulations outlawing so-called copycat cars for 2021. The Singapore Grand Prix race fix.
That was good.
Nelson Piquet Jr.'s crash exiting turn 18 while running 16th in the 2008 Singapore Grand Prix is the most infamous in F1 history. It was the key moment of Renault manipulating the race to ensure that Piquet's teammate, Fernando Alonso, won despite starting 16th, having suffered a fuel pump failure in qualifying. The following year, it emerged that Piquet had been ordered by the team's executive director of engineering, Pat Simmons, to cause a well-timed safety car after Alonso made an early pit stop. This instruction was given during a meeting on Sunday afternoon ahead of the race, with team principal Flavio Briatore present. After the ensuing investigation, Briatore was given a life ban from F1, with Simmons a 5-year ban, although both punishments were subsequently reduced. Piquet was indemnified for his cooperation, having brought the incident to the FIA's attention, while Alonso was exonerated as having no knowledge of the manipulation.
That's crazy. They fixed it. That's insanity. Yeah, and then Alonso still got the key because he didn't know nothing about it. You can't really take it from him because he didn't know. You just punish the parties that were involved, bro. That's insanity.
The Prost Senna Suzuka Wipeouts. Title-deciding collisions aren't unusual in F1, but the clashes between Alain Prost and Ayrton Senna at Suzuka in 1989 and 1990 are the most contentious. The first happened in the penultimate race of 1989 as Senna gradually closed the gap on his McLaren teammate for the race lead. On lap 47, he made his move to the inside approaching the chicane, only for Prost to turn in on him in a move Senna later described as unforgivable. The pair collided, with Prost out on the spot and Senna rejoining to win, only to be disqualified for missing the chicane. This allowed Prost to clinch the title with a race to spare and gave Benetton driver Alessandro Nannini his sole F1 win. Senna's subsequent allegations that the FIA had favoured Prost led to the threat of him not being granted a super licence for the following season. History repeated itself in 1990.
That's correct. I know about these two and their collisions, and it seemed like whoever was ahead in both of those crashes, you know what I'm saying? They took the other one out, so the title would be wrapped up. There'd be no sweat. As long as you take them out, no sweat.
Only even more spectacularly. Senna started on pole position, but lost the lead to Prost, now driving for Ferrari, on the run to turn 1. Senna looked to the inside, kept his foot in, and wiped both out.
Crazy.
This time, it was Senna who clinched the title with a race to spare, but he faced a barrage of criticism for causing a crash at approaching 150 miles an hour.
That's crazy.
At the time, Senna blamed Prost for turning in on him, but a year later, he confessed that he was responsible. Peroni's stolen victory. The 1982 San Marino Grand Prix remains one of the most talked about races in F1 history, thanks to the row between Ferrari teammates Didier Pironi and Gilles Villeneuve. The controversy rages to this day. Did Pironi disregard an explicit team order to beat Villeneuve? Was it a genuine misunderstanding? Or were no team orders ever really issued? What is beyond question is that Villeneuve overtook Pironi for the lead on the penultimate lap, losing it again at Piratella a lap later. Villeneuve was furious and felt betrayed by having the win taken from him. To complicate matters, as only 14 cars entered the race thanks to the FISA-FOCA war, the Ferrari and Renault drivers agreed privately to put on a show race in the first half of the Grand Prix to guarantee action. Villeneuve believed Pironi was continuing to do this to the end and would eventually take second. Only on the last lap did the penny drop. The truth probably lies somewhere between the various explanations. Most likely, it seems that the famous pit board with slow on it was first displayed at the end of lap 53, the same lap that Villeneuve ran wide and lost the lead. It was therefore inadvertently shown when Pironi was in front. There was also confusion as to whether the slow was a warning about fuel levels or if it really did mean hold position. While Pironi likely realised the intent of the instruction, the uncertainty allowed him to argue that he had the right to win, an opportunity he took. Villeneuve took his anger to the grave, losing his life in a qualifying crash at Zolder 2 weeks later, while Pironi's reputation was damaged for good.
That's legit heartbreaking, man. Yeah, these controversies are crazy, bro. Like, the things that have happened in F1 history that I have no clue of, and even after these 10, there's just so much more about F1 that I'm just completely in the dark about. But that excites me because it means I get to learn about all these things and all these champions and all these controversies and all these dramas and all these rules and all of this, you know what I'm saying? And so I think that's really cool.
Hunt's British Grand Prix disqualification. The first attempt to start the 1976 British Grand Prix at Brands Hatch resulted in a red flag after Clay Regazzoni clashed with Ferrari teammate Niki Lauda and spun. James Hunt couldn't quite get round the spinning Regazzoni, with his McLaren briefly flicked up into the air before coming crashing down, damaging the front suspension. Officials ruled Hunt would not be able to make the restart. Although the car had got back to the pits, he didn't complete the full lap before doing so. Instead, he pulled up at the end of the Cooper Straight, where the car was recovered to the pits via a cut-through by the team. As team boss Teddy Mayer argued Hunt should be allowed to start, the front suspension was changed and the car repaired, meaning the spare McLaren M23 wasn't required. With the crowd chanting, "We want Hunt!" eventually the officials caved to placate the fans and Hunt started and won the race.
Oh, wow.
An initial protest against Hunt was thrown out on the day. It wasn't until Ferrari lodged a third protest that the result was finally overturned and Hunt was disqualified, handing Lauda victory just over 2 months later.
Wow.
Benetton's 1994 season. Michael Schumacher and Benetton's Drivers' Championship winning campaign in 1994 is the most controversial in F1 history. In a tragic season remembered for the death of Ayrton Senna, Benetton was
R.I.P. to an absolute legend, man. Ayrton Senna. It reminds you how dangerous this sport is, man. And especially back then when it was, you know what I'm saying, you had less safety. I think the more like we progress and the more technology advances, you know what I'm saying, you're able to make these cars safer and safer for the drivers. But at the end of the day, these guys are going over 200 miles per hour, and to crash at that speed, no matter like how safe you make the car, is still like there's still that possibility of losing your life, or you know what I'm saying, getting critically hurt no matter what kind of car you make going that fast.
Barely out of the headlines, and for more than just its wins. Accusations of using traction control, which were never proved, even though the innuendo remains to this day, arose early in the season. The FIA also investigated and cleared Benetton for using launch control, which could be engaged via the infamous Option 13, accessible via a connected laptop. Benetton also pleaded guilty to illegally modifying its refuelling rig by removing a fuel filter from the hose, but escaped penalty as the manufacturer had given it and others permission to do so. But it should be noted this is not reckoned to have caused Jos Verstappen's famous German Grand Prix refuelling fire.
Oh,
Schumacher was excluded
that fire was insane
from the British Grand Prix for ignoring a penalty for illegally passing Damon Hill on the formation lap, and was also hit with a 2-race ban for the offence, keeping him out of the Italian and Portuguese Grand Prix. He also lost victory at Spa for what the FIA deemed to be illegal plank wear. The season culminated with Schumacher turning in on Hill in Adelaide, causing a collision that clinched the World Championship for the Benetton driver. A worthy champion? Certainly, but also a controversial one. McLaren Spy Scandal. Accusations of espionage are not unusual in F1, but in 2007 McLaren was found guilty of both possessing and using Ferrari design data. The result was an enormous $100 million fine, and McLaren being stripped of its Constructors' Championship points.
100 million, Jesus Christ!
Costing it the title. The twists and turns of the case are astonishing. It all started with Ferrari investigating race and test team manager Nigel Stepney, who was ultimately sentenced to 20 months in prison for sabotage, industrial espionage and sporting fraud, although he did not serve any jail time.
Okay.
The FIA's investigation found that Stepney had exchanged information with McLaren chief designer Mike Coughlin, who was found to be in possession of a 780-page Ferrari technical dossier and to have passed information to other members of the McLaren team. And it all came to light thanks to an anonymous employee of a Woking photocopy shop spotting the documents being copied and tipping off Ferrari.
Dang, that's crazy.
The Indy 2005 tyre farce. The 2005 United States Grand Prix was the weekend Formula One's intransigence allowed it to descend into farce. Only the 6 Bridgestone-shod cars started the race, with the 14 Michelin runners pulling into the pits at the end of the formation lap. It all started with Toyota driver Ralf Schumacher's massive accident at the final corner during Friday practice, the result of a rear left Michelin tyre failure. It wasn't a one-off, Michelin was in trouble. The reasons for the Michelin tyre problems were multifold. Rule changes covering the height of the front wing end plates meant there was less of a benefit from ground effect and led to inconsistent downforce levels and therefore load spikes in the corner that created aerodynamic bouncing the tyres had to absorb. This was also the year that F1 switched to tyres that had to last the full race distance, requiring harder compounds and meaning less grip. Michelin compensated.
I just imagine the tires that had to last a full race. Like, were races much shorter back then? Because if it's the same amount of laps, I can't imagine, like, one tire just surviving the entire race.
For this with an even more flexible sidewall, but that flexing, combined with the aerodynamic bouncing effect, resulted in the steel belt inside the tyre detaching from the sidewall. On top of this, the track had been diamond ground over the winter, which also changed the loads on the tyres. The Michelin tyres, being unable to handle the loads, created this situation. But the real reason the race became a 6-car farce dominated by Ferrari duo Michael Schumacher and Rubens Barrichello was because the teams, the FIA and the tyre suppliers failed to find a solution. Various options were tabled, including the imposition of a last corner speed limit and the addition of a chicane, but to F1's shame, no compromise was found. Those are our choices of F1's greatest controversies, but let us know in the comments below which ones we've missed. If you enjoyed this video, give us a thumbs up and make sure you subscribe and hit the notifications bell so you never miss a thing from the race.
Yeah, that's crazy. Some of these things are absolutely crazy. Some of these controversies were, man. That's all we got. You guys got a favorite video suggestion, you can subscribe to Patreon or drop it in the comment section. It's your boy Neal, out.